Alright, we're back in Explorer with Niv Mizzet. This is a deck we're going to be running. We're not running Supreme in this one. I felt that we need to come back on it until we get Bring to Light, because the one of in an 80 card deck is very rare indeed. But it's a pretty standard list. We're running Cosmic Rebirth, all of our 2-drop removal. We're trying the Invasion of Urgamon again, just as a small looter kind of effect. Yeah, it's pretty standard, so we'll look at sideboard here. We have Thoughtseize, Alpine Moon for Devotion decks, Control Hate, Wiener Hate, more Control Hate, additional board wipes for aggro decks, and an Invasion of Tolvada for more grindier matchups. First match here, Ageable. We have a turn 2 Leyline Binding, well 2 of them, so it's worth keeping. We are missing both black and green here, but Fable Passage will grab one or the other. Opponent plays blue. So we'll drop a Swamp, and if this is what I believe it is, yes, mono blue tempo. While they're tapped out, we'll Leyline Binding this. This deck is very low on threats and tons of protection, so we just gotta, whenever we can, thin out their board. We'll play a Sacred Foundry, we'll drop a Wandering Mind because it's a good blocker. We find a Deafening Clarion, which will deter them from deploying more threats onto the board. They choose not to attack and hold up 2 mana, so they're missing land drops here, which is pretty good for us. With a Fabled Passage now, we can hold access to Leyline Binding and Assassin's Trophy. So we'll get in here, wait till they go for... Yep, they tap out, so we'll Leyline Binding that. Wait to see what they do on their turn to inform our next decision. We'll grab our forest, so we have all 5 colours covered. We have another Wandering Mind in our hand. We're just going to put pressure on here. We're trying to encourage them to flash something out to block or use one of their spells. They ultimately don't, so we'll just pass. They play a Spectral Sailor. We wait for their turn. They attempt a Curious Obsession, so we go for an Assassin's Trophy. This should tempt out some of their interaction. They use Geistlight Snare. So they attack us and draw a card. Cool synergy here. Kaito prevents creatures from attacking or blocking. So we'll plus Kaito on the Spectral Sailor. So now they can't attack, so the Curious Obsession will kill itself. We won't bounce the creature, we want to keep the board presence chumped. Opponent reads Kaito, they've probably never seen it before, and Curious Obsession dies. Pass the turn, we have an Mizzet here. So we'll plus on Kaito again on the Spectral Sailor. In response, they use a Rattle Chains to protect it. We attack in. They have 1 card in hand, so we'll bounce our Wandering Mind, so they have 1 mana available. And then we'll Clarion to clear the board, covering for Spell Pierce. Then we'll draw with Kaito and they concede. Sideboarding, we bring in answers, counters, and more counters, and we take out our slower, grindier stuff. This matchup really just depends on, well, basically, answer their threats, and 9 times out of 10 a mono blue player will concede because they literally don't have any way to win. They won't even take that much damage and they'll concede. Alright, next one. We have a Veto and a Leyline Binding on turn 2. We also get a Thoughtseize here, so we'll play a Black Triome, which will allow us... They play a Legislator, so we'll just get this Vanishing Verse out of the way now. They appear to have brought in more threats for us. They play Ascended Spirit and hold up Counter Magic. We'll just Thoughtseize here, see what their hand's looking like. 2 counter spells and 2 Brazen Borrowers, so we'll take out a Brazen Borrower because we have the Veto to stop their counter if it counters anything that we truly care about. We'll take the 1 here. We're going to wait to see if they deploy or tap out. Again, we draw another land. We're flooding a little bit, so we'll just cover our bases here. When we untap, we'll have enough mana for Leyline Binding, holding up a Veto. We'll cycle the Triome. Finding another 2 lands, always fun. We'll just pass and see what our opponent does. They flash out a Spectral Sailor. On their turn, they find their 4th land drop and swing in. Puts us down to 14. We'll cycle another land here, finding more land. We find uncounterable Supreme Verdict, which is perfect here. So this gets rid of all their threats. We'll play another land here. In their end step, they flash in a Brazen Borrower, so we'll just Leyline Binding that. Now they have 2 counters and they have a Shackle Guy, so they do draw a threat. Put Yorion into hand, put the tap down. Play our land here. We can Wandering Mind. So if they double counter invest here, so it's better for us to hold on to the veto. So we'll pay the 4 here, make them use their second counter to stop us getting the Wandering Mind. On their turn they hit us for 2, we go down to 10. End step, we will crack Fabled. My allergies are going crazy, apologies for the sniffling. We'll play another land, we will drop the Yorion Sky Nomad. They don't appear to have counter magic, which is good for us. They go on their turn, play a Maelstrom Wanderer, they look for our graveyard. And they concede because they have no way to damage us. As I said before, we didn't even do damage. We'll move on to our next match, which is Krilius. Oh dear, right. The bane of my existence, this match. This is more proof of why Mono Green Devotion, I think, needs a ban. So as you see here, they start with green, we start with a Triome. They get their Nykthos, start pumping out their enchantments. I cover all my bases here, so I have a Leyline Binding for whatever threat they play. They drop a Kiora. In response to the untap, I'm going to get rid of the Kiora, keep their Devotion down. We don't want them to double tap Nykthos. They play a Llanowar Elves and a second Llanowar Elves. Shock in a Sacred Foundry, play a Fable. And now that they got 4 mana and we got something that makes treasure, they're inevitably going to have the Karn, the card that I think needs to be banned from this deck. Well, no, here's a Growth Troll, sorry. We'll loot away 2 lands here. Draw 2 more lands, well, Cosmic Rebirth and a land. So we'll play a land here, swing in, get a treasure. Opponent's going to block. We'll deploy the Supreme Verdict, again it's just to keep their Devotion down as much as humanly possible. They Nykthos, play Karn the Great Creator, such a terrible card that needs to be gone. They play a Haywire Mire, which is great for us because we actually can get rid of that because we have the Tyrant Scorn here. Unfortunately we don't have a way to kill the Karn, which would be very useful right now. They tap down Karn again. Again a Sky Sovereign. And then they pass back. And this is going to be the card that's going to drive us to the end here, because we don't draw any threats here, because basically they got to Wishboard their Karn answer out. They're going to start just turning this into a 5/5 and hitting us down. We'll cycle some lands and struggle it out. Yeah, ultimately, I know the argument to not ban anything from this deck because it doesn't do like insane numbers. But it's just one of these inevitable decks. I feel that if you ban Nykthos, this deck could still exist. It would be less potent, but they still have their Storm the Festivals and all the other stuff. We get Cosmic Rebirth back for Fable the Mirrorbreaker. Apologies for going on a tangent, I just really despise talking about this deck. It's just not really enjoyable to play against or really record. But like I said, it's one of these things which always hits, so we'll Leyline Binding here, we'll take out the Cavalier of Thorns. For some reason they crew it thinking that maybe that'll untap it, but the permanent itself is tapped. We can kill the Karn here, and then we can use the Assassin's Trophy to kill the land with all their enchantments on, so they go down to 0 Devotion. Now you think in this position we'd be great, we'd have a great chance. Fortunately not, because they have Wolfwillow Haven into an Elvish Mystic, and that last card I believe is a Karn, so they will inevitably just have an amazing answer again for us. We drop another Fabled Passage here. We got blue or white, get that out. Consider playing Yorion here, and I ultimately do. I think this was probably a mistake. problem, I reset the Saga because I just want to try and find some additional things. They have another Cavalier. They have, yep, swing in here, kill one of our Goblin tokens. We cycle more lands, draw more things that just aren't going to do anything here. We're going to Clarion. We can gain life here. Try again, just hold off their devotion as long as possible here. But ultimately, they're like 1 mana away from casting another Storm, the thing. If they have that in hand. Yeah, there's nothing really to say. I genuinely feel, based on the ramp they have in the devotion, that if you just got rid of Nykthos, then this deck would still exist and still be as oppressive, but just not as explosive. We go down to 4 here. We draw a Vanishing Verse, which gets rid of the Cavalier, but we can't kill the Khan. So ultimately we're going to have to just hold back here, wait, have the Sky Sovereign swing in, kill everything on our board, and then pass and hope we draw an answer. We would need basically one of our artifact removal spells here. They just start dicking around, casting more stuff for their devotion. Yeah, nothing to really say. It's genuinely one of the decks I feel probably just has to go, like, in its current format. We're bringing the Alpine Moons, Fortseas and Vetoes, take out some slower stuff here. Yeah. I mean, I know we're getting standard bans, so we got standard bans this week. On the day I'm recording this, they're going to announce it. But I would be really astoundingly happy if they suddenly announced, hey, in Pioneer, we've took out Khan the Great Creator. I also think that while Khan exists, we can't have artifact decks. And I know that with Brothers One Things, they were probably hoping that we'd spawn some artifact archetypes. We keep this hand on the premise that we can hopefully draw black mana. If we don't draw black mana by turn 3, I'm probably just going to concede to Rage, because I just do not want to engage with this deck. Plus, this player this is ×2 speed here. Our opponent is just super slow, so I ultimately decide, nah, we didn't get black, I'm just going to concede. They're going to have stupid mana next turn. I don't want to play that match. We'll move on to our final match here. Yes, that was a quick concede, but ultimately, Mono Green Devotion is just one of these snowball slow decks, and that guy played so slow in the first game that I just didn't want to finish it. We get an Elvish Mystic, but the fact that he played Brushland makes me 90% sure this is Selesnya Angels. So we can just pass and see where things go from here. Bishop of Wings comes down. This deck depends on them getting some high life total, and the fact that they've shocked themselves down to 15, I'm more than happy to let them just sit here. I do need red mana as quickly as possible here to actually do some effective things. They play another tap land. Another Mystic. Again, we draw a red card and no red source. So we'll just pass. They're up to 5 mana. Legalia, the Font of Hope, a Righteous Valkyrie. We find a Supreme Verdict, which is great for us, keeps us in this game. Another Righteous Valkyrie. And a land. We draw another red card. Of course we do. They play Galia, the Font of Hope, and swing in. We find a red mana, but unfortunately it's tapped, so we'll just put Yorion into hand here. They swing in, put us down to 10. And then they have... Right, we play Niv Mizzet here, which can buy us some time. We don't find what we're looking for though. We need board wipes. We'll discard a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. I was intending to bring this back with Cosmic Rebirth, but unfortunately our opponent went a little ham. They have their third Righteous Valkyrie, pumping their team and a Youthful Valkyrie. Their whole team now goes up. We have to block with Niv... Well, we take the Niv Mizzet hit here. I use Wandering Mind. I'm hoping to find Leyline Binding, which I do. However, I miscalculate here. I thought I had an Assassin's Trophy in hand, which meant we could survive this. So what we can do here is, opponent swings in, we'll Leyline Binding one of the biggest Valkyries. We can block 2 of the creatures, but unfortunately it's still 4 damage. So, kind of on us there that we just got unlucky with our card draw. So, again, more removal in, slower cards out. They have 3 toughness, so we've got to consider that. We'll take out the Invasion of Urgamon. Really not been impressing me in these run sets. We'll see how our opponent sideboarded. Alright, back to it. We go first, we have Fatal Push. We don't have black, but we do have a Fabled, which is great for us. So we'll get a Fabled down because we want access to black mana for all these removal spells as quickly as possible. They start with Shaper's Sanctuary, so they've gone heavy removal protection. So let's start off with a Vanishing Verse to get rid of that so they don't draw any cards. See what they do on their turn. They play Gallia, the Font of Hope. We'll drop a tap land and we'll Fatal Push that. Next turn, they drop their second Gallia and another Shaper's Sanctuary. So here I have 2 board wipes, so it's better to play defensive. So we'll grab blue here off the Tyrant Scorn. See what they do on their turn. They have a little think. They drop their land and drop Redain's Shield. So we're going to use Tyrant Scorn here. They're going to draw a card off this, but saves us some damage. We'll drop another. Around here we have Leyline Binding for the Shaper's Sanctuary or the Shield. They drop a Righteous Valkyrie. I choose to get rid of the Valkyrie. It's more important, it's harder to remove. Opponent plays their third Gallia. Right, on our turn we untap. Since we only have board wipes, we like to deploy more threats here. Take 2 down to 16. They play Righteous Resolute Angel. We will Vanishing versus Shaper's Sanctuary. I have to read this because I was unsure if Solar Blaze would kill them, but it does. So I'll play Solar Blaze, pass the turn. Opponent plays a tap land, does nothing. We top deck Niv, which is perfect. Niv comes down, we get an answer to their shield as well, which is very nice. They play the Resplendent Angel. I was checking how big that could pump itself, so we'll make them discard their last card in case it's Collected Company. It was not, and we'll kill that shield. We can hold back now. Opponent takes a minute. Play a land. Use Wandering Mind. Consider what we grab, and I choose a Fable of the Mirror Breaker here. Pass the turn. Don't want to overcommit yet. They have a think about what they're going to do. They play the Anointed Peacekeeper. And they grew up here. They choose Fable of the Mirror Breaker, but I think they were trying to choose Reflections of Kiki-Jiki. So on their turn, I choose to Growth Spiral, see what I draw, hit another Mizzet. I'm going to attack with the Goblin Shaman here. So I can use the treasure to trigger Revolt and kill the Anointed Peacekeeper. They get their 4th Gallia. Growth Spiral finds us another land. We get a Tyrant Scorn here, which is pretty good. So we'll Tyrant Scorn the Resplendent Angel. Now we should start hitting him with Niv. Puts him down to 12. Put Yorion into hand here. And we'll show them how bad this position is. We'll copy the Wandering Mind, grab a Leyline Binding off it. Play the Leyline Binding, get rid of the Gallia. Swing in with the team, put him down to 2. And we still have enough mana to Yorion blink our board. So we will get another Wandering Mind activation and another Niv reload here. I'm not resetting the reflections, we've got a good enough position here. And yep, we find more removal through any answers they could have.
Reload!
And we pass the turn, they draw and concede. Run it back with the same sideboarding, see how this goes. We just want a handful of answers. And that's what we get here. We have turn 2 Leyline Binding. We still need black for our Vanishing Verses, which we draw here. They drop a Righteous Valkyrie, so I will play my land and I will Vanishing Verse that. Pass the turn, we can hold up a Leyline Binding. Down comes Gallia, end of turn, we're Leyline Binding it. We draw Fatal Push, we'll play another land. Pass the turn. They play another Gallia, end of turn, we'll Fatal Push it. On our turn, we'll play our land. Put Yorion into hand, we still have Vanishing Verse or Scorn, depending on what we need. They play an Elvish Mystic. I'm going to keep them down because they probably have company and want 4 mana. We hit Niv and we reload, finding more answers, and our opponent concedes. So good set all round, apart from Devotion.